Hi, I'm Andy.
And I'm Lindsay. Welcome to E-commerce Marketing with the Pitbulls, where we try to cut through the noise and simplify digital marketing for authentic brands looking to just make more sales online.
Awesome. Today we're joined by Parker Olson. Parker, am I pronouncing that correctly? It's Olson?
It is Parker Olson, Olson with an O.
Excellent. Parker is the founder of Forij. This is a brand that makes award-winning snacks. I'm a big fan of the granola. Looking to support healthy aging and brain development. So they're infused with functional mushrooms, and I'm sure Parker will give us the full rundown of that today. Something I'm really excited to talk to Parker about today. I'm reading through your bio here. It says that you pride yourself on shamelessly promoting your brand on airplanes, in traffic, or on the lake. So I think it is really cool that kind of person to person, selling to one customer at a time, developing those human relationships. So really, that's really what I want to dive into today. All around, obviously it's unique and there's a novelty to it, but yeah, I'm sure there's a lot more that you get out of it, and it goes a lot deeper than that too. So yeah, excited to talk about that all today.
Cool. Yeah. Stoked to be here. I'm definitely excited to share the story and talk a little bit guerrilla sales tactics and how we leverage those specifically for online and digital and other marketing channels. I think is the greater outcome of a lot of that content and a lot of those efforts. So I think it's going to be a good show.
Awesome. Well, cool. To kick us off, Parker, one of the things that really kind of took me aback the first time we met, the first thing that I caught about the brand was that you had lived out of a van for a year selling selling granola person to person. So I'm curious if you can kind of just start out by telling us that story. Like, how did that come about? What made you decide to do that? And yeah, what was that all about?
Yeah, well, so before that, I actually had not had a bed before that for a year and a half. So I was living in a home with three roommates, and when I was starting the company, we needed a space to store ingredient and finished good product and miscellaneous things, and maybe some desks for some interns who were helping build the brand. So I threw out my bed, and in March of maybe 2020, I guess it would have been, yeah, in 2020, I moved permanently out into our backyard into a tent. And so I lived outside in our backyard in a tent for over a year and a half. And then that transitioned into moving into this Japanese import 1995 pop-up camper van. It's like a vintage vehicle. And the idea was that we had just started opening up and putting our product into some stores around the US that we were really excited about. And, just because a new product shows up on shelf, nobody really knows about it. And so we decided we would get in the van and we would drive to these locations and meet with the people that are working at the store and meet with the customers and sample the product. And so, yeah, that transitioned into living out of this van for almost exactly a year, driving around the US and sleeping in grocery store parking lots. And I spent my birthday in December outside of Detroit, like freezing, and certainly was an interesting time, to say the least.
Yeah, talk about a bootstrapped founder story. I feel like that is like the true living in a tent to make sure that you have space to store your goods for a year. That's awesome.
Yeah. So business has to come first, and even just starting to touch on it, that was really when I started, and we've chatted about it, Andy, but I leverage like LinkedIn a lot. But we also, I don't know if you've gone through any of our like more content ads online, but a lot of it is just repurposed content from like living on the road or living in the tent, and so forth.
Definitely. So yeah, I think like this is a really cool technique, but that's a first good point to call out. So, obviously there's a lot of novelty to it, and it's just a kind of a neat thing to do. But, first big outcome right there, all the content that you have, like your entire brand story kind of wrote itself. It seems like, where it's, just the effort that you put in and the passion you put in, it just comes right through in that one, I would say that one little thing, but that one big thing that you did for a year there, kind of create a lot of story and a lot of content that you can live off for quite some time.
That's the hope, right? And it's definitely crafted kind of our content strategy and some of our digital strategy of like, in today's era, and I'm sure you and Lindsay could talk to it, but like when there's so much noise and everybody's going to market online, and it's like, how are you advertising and marketing online and figuring out how to play effectively? The consumer becomes numb to very traditional content and tactics, I think. And so, yeah, we've definitely seen some benefits of just creating this like really raw, authentic, kind of out of the ordinary stories and narrative lines and content around what we're doing. So it's somewhat work that it still is a challenge, really challenging channel, but we've seen glimpses of good use cases for sure.
Awesome.
Well, can I ask, since I feel like it's so inspiring and interesting to hear about a founder's story. You're the face of the brand. You're out, you're talking to people. I feel like you hear a lot of times in e-commerce marketing, they're hiding behind the screen. They're using ad platforms to get the story out there. And it can really only go so far. Have you seen much of a difference when you're actually interacting with people as the face of the brand, as the founder? You know the story, you're passionate about the product. Can you talk a little bit about what that experience is like in comparison to what you typically would see with digital marketing strategies? I think you mentioned guerrilla marketing in particular. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I'm as a founder, I don't think I'm super digitally native. And so, for me, I'd rather go like make a fool of myself in front of people than like sit online in a platform. And part of me thinks that it feels soulless to me, like, because I don't really know what I'm doing, and it feels like I'm just plugging in, metrics. And so, making one-on-one contact has been really valuable of like earning devout followers and devout customers who are like, yeah, like I met the founder and this is really cool. And I really like the product. And, with a product that requires a lot of awareness, I think it's like, we sort of have to drive awareness in more authentic channels, or in channels where we can get more time with a potential end consumer, where instead of, like an advertisement or kind of a quick blurb that like everybody can understand what the concept is. Unfortunately, we've chosen a more challenging route. So I think those are a couple of the reasons. The other thing that I found to be really valuable is from a messaging standpoint. So when I do go out and I'm meeting one-on-one with these customers, like I can hear or I'll pick up on, how they're describing the product back to me, or they're like, oh, so it's like this, or, oh, this is what it's good for. And you, even as you're trying to explain what the product does or the benefits or why they should buy it, et cetera, you can see like when someone's eyes light up over a certain one-liner or a certain messaging. And so we've definitely, like, we meet, and kind of my partner in crime, he's actually out in the van right now, and he'll be living out of this van for the next 2 months. We talk frequently when we're interacting with customers, and we say, okay, like, were there any specific messages that seemed to just really resonate, right? Like, was there anything that stood out to you where, somebody really got it instantly? And then taking those messages and applying them across digital platforms, where, you're almost just listening to the customer and regurgitating what they're saying.
That's so cool. So it's not only, the content creation and being able to have more stories to tell in a digital format, but even just like crafting the stories in the first place and kind of getting to know, what the customers actually want. It sounds like you're really, kind of driving in on crafting the brand and the messaging, on the fly while you're doing that.
Yeah. And I will always go out and just like, it's similar to, I'm sure, what people are doing people who are really natively on digital, and, what I do on digital, because I do manage much of our digital, but it's like, I'm A/B testing messages all the time. And I'm sure Andy or Lindsay, I'm not sure how much you follow me specifically on LinkedIn, but like my favorite thing to do is use the whiteboard. And oftentimes I'll experiment with different messages on the whiteboard. And then I'm kind of just like roughly calculating like conversion rates in terms of like how many people read it and were like, oh, I'm interested in that. And I mean, you can see vast differences across messaging. Like, messaging is so important.
Tell me a little bit more about kind of roughly calculating conversion rates, like you referenced there. So obviously, there's a lot of value here. We already touched on, just the general insights that you're going to get back from customers, as well as, the content you get out of this whole endeavor. But like, getting down to the base level, if we're trying to measure how many new customers did you actually gain, or how many sales did you actually gain, do you have any ways to measure that, or at least estimate that from all of this work?
Yes. Well, so a lot of selling I do is like in person through retail channel, right? And so I imagine a lot of brands you guys are working with are primarily selling online. So it's slightly different in that nuanced aspect. Like, if we had 5 devoted people who bought our product every single week in every single store we sold in, that we would be a smashing company. Which is crazy to think about those numbers. Like 5 is not very much, but the week, like weekly purchase, devout followers compounds over time and can be pretty like impressive. So for me, it's mostly tracked through like, okay, maybe we'll sample product at a store, or we'll, run an in-person event around a couple stores. And then we'll track like, okay, how does sales in that store do over the next, several weeks to months. When I talked about conversion rate earlier, it's more around, sometimes what I'll do is I'll go out in real life, and for us, we sell a food item. And so sometimes, if I'm in a store sampling or something, I'll go to a different part of the store, or a part of the store that I can see, and I'll set up like a whiteboard again, and I'll write like a message on it, and maybe I'll put it next to like a table of our product. And then I'm kind of keeping an eye on it, of seeing like, okay, like watching the traffic go by, how many people are stopping and like intrigued by it. And that's more so what I mean about like conversion rates. It's like understanding like what messaging resonates versus doesn't resonate. And so it's more around like trying to understand like what is that true messaging that can unlock like the intrigue from a potential consumer standpoint, but also like describe the product effectively. So almost like using it as an A/B proxy to like maybe take that messaging and put it online, like, or put it on our website, or put it behind ads or something.
I love that.
So Forij is a different product. It's innovative. There's like more to it. You have to explain more. There's more education for the consumer. What kind of challenges have you faced in dealing with that when you're out talking to people, even online, trying to find like succinct messaging that really punches through the noise, but yet explains the product in a way that people can understand, especially because it's so cutting edge and people are just starting to understand about it. What kind of challenges have you faced with that?
Yeah, great question. So I feel like there's 2, larger things that I've learned. And one of them I like love to repeat, but it's like, nobody wants to be sold, but everybody wants to buy. And so like, what is it that people want to buy from the product? Like, you don't want to sell them on like, oh, we have this innovative product and the coolest thing ever. And, that's salesy. But so it's really understanding like, what are people wanting to buy out of the product? And then similarly, like, how are you meeting consumers where they are? So like, we have a complex product, right? It's a food product, but it's like supplements are added in and they have these added benefits. Like, okay, that's confusing. The supplements are mushrooms. There's a lot of existing connotation around mushrooms in general, right? Like, if you were to take a broad survey of people in the US and you were to say, what are the first 2 words that when you think of mushrooms, like maybe it's like drugs, or maybe it's like disgusting. Like, I don't know, like a lot of people think mushrooms are kind of gross. A lot of people are afraid of them, or like think they can kill them, or think they're drugs. And so trying to understand, okay, like if I lead with saying I make mushroom granola, probably the first thing that comes up in someone's mind is like, mushrooms are savory, and like maybe you would put them on like a steak or something. And in granola, that's sweeter. Like, that sounds disgusting. Or mushroom granola, is this going to get me high? Like, is this a psychedelic thing? Or mushroom granola, like, is this going to kill me? So understanding like, how do we ease into that conversation, and how are we getting to the root of really what we're trying to do? And really what we're trying to do is like, the reality is mushrooms can offer like an excellent natural remedy to tons of age-related health concerns, of development-related health, not concerns, but health priorities, right? For like parents of children, right? Like brain development, bone density development. You're looking at heart health. You're looking at reducing inflammation. And so the idea is to take the mushrooms and those benefits and put them in every single day foods. And so how are we communicating that message versus like mushrooms and granola? Of course, the consumer will always find out that these benefits are from mushrooms, but how are we navigating that storyline really effectively, where people are like, oh, this is something I find compelling and interesting. I'm interested. Oh, there's mushrooms. Okay, that's minor because I'm already sold on the fact that this is really interesting to me. I think it tastes good because that's what I understand. It looks like it tastes good, et cetera.
Let's just take a second to step back and level set. So we're talking about mushrooms in granola. I know from my own experience buying some Forij, I was just telling Lindsay, I was trying some yogurt with granola. I was doing the almond one right before we hopped on this call. But so I think from your packaging, I learned the term functional mushroom for the first time. But can you kind of like break down like, so I guess in my head, I'm thinking a functional mushroom is something that's going to give me, some of those like focus, like some of those types of things that we talk about, or some of the basic health benefits. But differently and separately from, to your point, like a psychedelic mushroom or a drug mushroom, or like a, culinary mushroom, like a, portobello mushroom or something like that? What's kind of the breakdown there? And am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, actually, I think that's pretty solid. Yeah, so the way that I like to think about mushrooms is most people think mushrooms are really black and white. It's like, okay, it's edible or like, or it's psychedelic and it's like this powerful drug, or they're going to kill you, right? And the reality is like across maybe those things, that belief system like it's like a spectrum, right? Like maybe way on the center, like mushrooms that like could kill you and are lethal, right? Like maybe kind of somewhere around here, like anywhere along the spectrum are like psychedelic mushrooms that like can cause profound. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My connection was unstable, but am I still live? You guys both froze.
Oh yeah, you're good. Can you
hear us? You came through to me.
Okay, I'll kind of keep talking, but feel free to stop me. I'll revert, but so most, how I think about mushrooms is that there's multiple categories, and most people think it's a black and white spectrum of like mushrooms that are edible and mushrooms that can kill you, and then there's mushrooms that are psychedelic, and there's very concrete lines, right? The reality is like there's this broad spectrum of mushrooms, and there's kind of mushrooms that are edible, and then those kind of bleed into like functional mushrooms, and functional mushrooms or medicinal mushrooms have added benefits. For example, like there's micronutrients within some functional mushrooms that are actually really good at helping your brain cells grow. And so there's a lot of studies to back that up, to say when you're consuming these on a daily basis, your brain is actually like growing and then also pruning old connections really efficiently. And so a lot of outcomes from that and correlations to that are like those participants are acting way more creatively or are more productive. And then kind of further on the spectrum, right, is maybe these like psychedelic mushrooms that have, mind-bending properties, right? The reality is that they're sort of interacting with your brain chemicals and how your brain's interacting and changing your perception of life around you. And then, somewhere else out there on the spectrum are these potentially deadly mushrooms. So we believe like there is a lot of benefits around generally mushrooms as a whole, all three of those categories besides the deadly ones. And then, getting them into your diet can help you feel better on a daily basis and can help with certain developmental priorities or certain age-related health concerns.
Awesome. So jumping back to the marketing side, so focusing in, I feel like you have a really person-to-person, individual, like let's get one new customer at a time kind of thing. What are you doing to nurture customers and make sure that since you're spending so much or putting the effort in to build that authentic connection one-on-one, that's so valuable? What are you doing to make sure that you're nurturing that and kind of getting the most out of that relationship as possible?
Yeah. So, we definitely do kind of a lot of standard nurture practices, right? It's like we'll do certain email series. Like I as a founder will write emails once a week to kind of our closest followers. We'll send texts. I give out all my personal like contact information. Thankfully, like no stalkers to date. And then also I like to try and like add my own language and make the language more personable. So like having somebody feel like, okay, this is actually coming from an individual and Parker's really invested here. This isn't just like a company that's doing this. Other sort of nurture tactics that we look at, we recently just started testing. Have you guys started to see the kind of like personalized video platforms? No. So there's like some AI and machine learning technology out there now where like you go through and you record a video and then you record like 20 minutes of names and it like tracks your mouth. And then so you can send these videos and it will be like Lindsay, and then it will say the same message, or like Andy, and it'll say the same message. And so, looking for some ways that are kind of trying to scale continuously, like this personal hand, white glove touch, although like that feels like a little fakey, but we're kind of just testing different ideas to try and, to continue to try and make the brand feel really authentic and make, makes people feel comfortable that like I have their best intentions in mind. And this isn't some corporation, which is ultimately true.
Yeah, no, it feels so ridiculous. Like the idea of like, AI generated video, but I feel like that also is probably literally the way of the future. Like if you told people 10 years ago, though, we're going to send emails that actually have your first name in the subject line, people would say like, oh, of course not. No, but like that's standard. You have to do that these days. So That's cool. That's really interesting. And I love the point about using your own personal email. I was taken aback the first time I ordered, because I know, we had met separately, outside of, anything having to do with the product. And so the first time I ordered and I opened up and saw your business card with literally the same email that I'd communicated separately with you on, I was like, oh, look at that. That's cool.
And I find the places where that really makes the biggest difference is when there's a bad customer interaction. Like, I feel like if anything, it minimizes bad customer interactions, because when people are pissed, they'll like call me and I pick up the phone and they're like, is this actually you? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, what's going on? Like, how can I help you? Like, super sorry. And, we make it right. And it's funny how a lot of those people end up becoming like the biggest brand advocates. Like, I know this sounds kind of twisted, but chatted with some other consumer packaged product founders about this, and we all kind of agree. It's like, it's crazy how these customers that have an initial poor reaction, like if you go the extra mile as a founder and then you make it right, they become like these advocates. And another founder and I were joking around about how, like, what if like once a week you've literally like created purposely like a bad interaction with a customer, and then you immediately follow up and you're like, I'm so sorry, like blah blah blah. Like, again, like it's fake. Like, I don't think I feel moral doing that, but it'd be like from like a logical tactic standpoint, like it'd be kind of interesting. I don't know. Like, we're not doing that, but we were just kind of joking around about it.
Well, now,
so I think
for whatever reason,
some of that personal stuff enables.
Yeah, for whatever reason, in my next order, I have like, one package missing or something. I'll know. I know it's all planned.
I love that you mentioned that, though. I feel like even in retail, when I worked in retail, people just want to be heard and they want to be seen and they want to feel cared about. And if you can make that personal connection, I love that you're evangelizing that you can really turn them into your biggest brand advocates. Do you have anything to say more about that for e-commerce owners? Because I feel like there is a larger disconnect on e-commerce, and maybe it's because you're out actually conversing with people face to face. But for e-commerce owners, I'm sure it's just as easy to delete that email and just hope it goes away, or hope to get more 5-star reviews to bury that 1-star review. Can you talk about how worth it is to put that effort forth to turn that around for a customer?
Yeah. So something we're working on is like taking some of those instances where something's gone bad and then we make it right. And then it's cool, some of like these reviews that people leave, or like some of the communications, and then actually like evangelizing that as like kind of our guarantee a little bit, like in our branding, being like, hey, like, we're not perfect. Like, things, can go bad, but like, this is what we do when things happen. And so it feels that, like, again, it's like more authentic, and it's one of those things where, like, if no other brand is coming out and saying and being vulnerable and being like, bad things happen and like, this is how we handle them, like, I think it could be a really cool way to differentiate yourself in a consumer's mind. So yeah, I guess that's what I would say about it. And then, I guess furthermore, like, to even taking that to like a content standpoint, right? It's like, man, maybe you have somebody in your funnel and, they've gone to checkout or something, and then that's kind of like a targeted advertisement or something around like, hey, like, this isn't always great, but this is our team and this is what we do to make it right. And like, we would love to have you join as a customer. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I love to. I think that's such a good message, because I think a lot of times founders, especially for smaller brands getting started, you'd say, oh, I would never put my personal phone number, my personal email out there because, I'm going to be inundated with all these things. And it's certainly not scalable. But I think it's so important to remember that, one, doesn't necessarily need to be like the most scalable technique in the world, especially as you're starting out. Like, it's not like you're going to get 10,000 calls a day when, you probably don't have a ton of sales as you're getting started and just trying to get the word out there. And then on top of that, I mean, to really humble yourself and put yourself out there to say, hey, I'm the one out here to hear, what your actual problems are and then solve them. And that's how the brand is getting better. That's so, so valuable.
Yeah. And I think our partners see that too. Again, like, I think a lot of brands you work with are a lot of brands you work with mostly direct to consumer explicitly.
It's a little bit of both. We do a lot of kind of helping with that transition. So kind of smaller local brands looking to get a little bit more of a national footprint. So trying to go online to do that, as opposed to doing a lot of wholesale relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess just my only point there is, like, I think as you maybe want to go more B2B and wholesale, like going the extra mile and showing that content, like, I think makes it really, again, it's like showing the vulnerability is like builds instant credibility or trust with other partners where you're like, man, this person is on the front lines and really cares about their product and cares about their customers. Like this is likely to be a good relationship. So I just think there's immense value in being vulnerable about those things and showing up and helping and supporting and putting a real human behind whatever you're doing.
Awesome. Well, Parker, I really appreciate you being so generous with your time today. And I know you do have a stop here. So I want to start to wrap up. So let's go into our What's Good segment. Lindsay, do you want to kick us off? What's good this week?
Oh, I am so excited. My parents are coming to visit next week, so that's partially what's good. But what drew my mom all the way across the country to come visit me in the mountains here is that it's leaf season, which I did not know was like a thing until I moved here. But it's a thing, and it drives lots of people here. Traffic gets really nuts. But the trees are turning beautiful shades of red and brown, and it's like fire across the sky in the mountains here. It's just so beautiful. So I normally, when I work downtown and in retail, it was not a fun time during leaf season when the leaf peepers would come. But now that I don't, I'm really enjoying it this year. And it's just so beautiful to watch it. We're having a proper fall is what someone told me the other day. And I said, yeah, it is a proper fall.
Love that.
It is a proper fall. For me, I think, similar, I'm loving the fall here, getting kind of segueing in. My son has been loving, we have a big tree in our front yard, and this is really like his first year where he's like actually getting to like notice the leaves changing and seeing everything kind of all one day. They like went from starting to change a little bit to all of a sudden there was like a bunch on the ground, and just like watching him get out of the car and run over and jump in was the most fun. But not to steal your what's good here. Our big thing for the weekend, this is going into potty training weekend. So I don't know if it's really fair to call this what's good, or maybe I'll tell you next week if it's what's good or what's bad, but excited to be through potty training at least and to kind of get started and make some progress on this.
Yeah. You got to start to get through it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that'll be what I'll be up to this weekend.
Nice.
And what's good for me, it's supposed to be upper 70s and potentially lower 80s here in Seattle this weekend.
Wow.
So I probably be on the water and enjoying hopefully not the last, but I'll be enjoying the sun rays.
Awesome. That sounds great. All right. Well, as we wrap up, I want to give you a little bit of time, Parker, to get your plug in here. So give us just kind of, I guess we've kind of touched on it here and there throughout the episode, but yeah, tell us a little bit more about Forij. And I think you had an offer for viewers today.
Yeah, if people are interested, the thesis and why I started the company is I basically was supplementing with some of these quote unquote functional mushrooms for a couple months, and I just saw really great improvements in my own health, like from an energy and a focus standpoint, and like was sleeping less and feeling really good. And so we took them, we put them in an award-winning granola. It's really good, whole food ingredient, low sugar. So if you're interested in any of the benefits of mushrooms, or you've been reading about them, but you think mushrooms are gross, or you just want to try and seamlessly get them into your diet, check us out. We sell them on our website. We sell them on Amazon. We'll give you $10 off on our website today, or for the next probably week. We'll keep it open here, Andy, with code PPC Pitbull 10, so you can get $10 off your order. So yeah, if you want to check it out, come check it out. If you don't. We're here for people who are intrigued and want to try and improve kind of their day-to-day quality of life through the supplementation of mushrooms. So appreciate everyone listening now.
Awesome. And I can confirm I've been enjoying it. Sorry, I don't know if you hear Percy shaking off in the background here. But yeah, I've been, I got the variety pack to try it out, and I've been enjoying all your flavors. I really like is it the cacao? The chocolate one is just awesome. Mm-hmm. Throwing it on a little bit of Greek yogurt, and it's like spectacular. So everyone should definitely make a point to check that out. And we'll have the link to that promotion in the show notes. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Andy.
Yeah, thank you to Parker. I think we learned a lot about kind of some really interesting and unique opportunities to get out there. My big takeaway is whether you're selling online or selling in person, whatever you're doing, get some in-person interaction, talk to customers, You're going to get some great content out of it and things that you can repurpose. But I think more importantly, you're going to learn a little bit more about the brand and really, how you're perceived and what makes your brand special. And, it's everything from content to marketing to, product generation and kind of learning about what's going on in your business. So you probably don't need to necessarily live out of a van for a year, but if you can, get out to a farmer's market and meet some people and, try to do some in-person tasting and figure out what people think of your products.
Yeah. Lindsay, it was super nice to meet you, and I appreciate you both for having me on.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thanks for coming on, Parker.
All right. Cool. So we're all wrapped up here. If you're ready to take the next step in your digital marketing journey, please check out ppcpitbulls.com/assessment to take our digital marketing maturity assessment. That'll help you determine your next best step. And if you like what you hear today, make sure to smash that subscribe button. We'll be putting these out every 2 weeks, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon.